Market economies are not foreign to us. We created them ourselves. We invented and innovated. We traded goods over hundreds of miles. If we did not trade, how could pipestone, dating back to before contact, end up in south-central British Columbia when it only comes from Pipestone, Minnesota? If we did not specialize and innovate, how could corn be used throughout the Americas before contact? If we did not build economies, how could we have survived for many millennia? Markets have 6 characteristics. We developed them all. We have stories in our oral and written history passed down through generations. And in this video, we will experience only a sample of our economic ingenuity throughout the Americas. We start our journey in modern-day Peru. Researchers determined that Norte Chico, made up of more than 30 major population centers, came together for the purpose of trade, sending a number of goods and implements all the way to current-day Ecuador and areas of the Amazonian rainforest. Trade is a strong motivator amongst indigenous peoples. With growing trade comes specialization. There are many examples pre- and post-contact, such as the Mayans. They developed complex trade networks resulting from their unique ability to specialize in production. The northern lowland tribes of the Maya were able to trade with the highland groups through various inland and water routes on the Gulf of Mexico and Honduras. The northern lowlands tribes received goods like corn, fruit, cacao, flint, game, cotton, cloth, obsidian, and even manufactured goods from the highland tribes in exchange for things like honey, salt, ceramics, salted fish, marine shells, dye, incense, jade, rubber, and even various tools. Trade cannot happen without infrastructure and institutions. We built those too. To facilitate trade, the Mayan people built public warehouses, roads, or trade routes made of stone and rest houses for goods carriers. Another example in modern-day Pacific Northwest, there are Ooligan grease trails, a comprehensive network of trade routes developed to move valuable Ooligan grease between coastal and inland nations. The trails were so extensive they covered from present-day Yukon Territory to present-day Northern California and as far east as Montana and Alberta. There were even grease trails on Vancouver Island. But the linguistic diversity of the area presented communications and trade challenges after contact. Out of necessity, a common trade language emerged, Chinook. The adaptation of Chinook jargon into more universal, easier-to-learn trade language enabled greater interaction, commerce, and innovation between indigenous peoples and settlers from present-day Alaska to California. There is significant evidence we understood the rule of law and standards to enable fair trade. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the Aztecs of modern-day Mexico operated a legal and market system centered around the concept of taxation and contracts. A group known as the Pushtika worked for the Aztec government to regulate the marketplace, collect market taxes from sellers, and enforce the Aztec commercial law system. They also worked with inspectors to uphold product quality and exchange rate standards in the marketplace. The Aztecs were also responsible for one of our few surviving pre-contact texts. This Aztec codex, the Codex Vergara, from about 1300 AD, 200 years before contact, provides measurements which represent a method for calculating area that is unfamiliar to modern mathematicians. It is widely believed these measurements were used to assess property values to collect taxes. Moving north. My community, the Tecumloops de Chihuahua of present-day British Columbia, still has fluvial or irrigation evidence indicating we had individual property rights dating back to traditional times. We had a word, taxes, Taksis. This is the Chinook word for taxes. We raise taxes in our community for special initiatives, services, and infrastructure. Trade, supportive institutions and infrastructure cannot be financed without capital. We develop mediums of exchange, such as dentalia shells, beaver, and even blankets. Still to this day, our Shuswap word for money is beaver pelt, sklout. There are many pre-contact examples from our oral histories of sharing, giveaways, and contributions to each other, our communities, institutions, and infrastructure. In the Pacific Northwest, our potlatch ceremonies represented a mechanism to redistribute wealth amongst our people until they were outlawed after contact. Some suggest potlatches represent an early form of fractional reserve banking, serving an important role in our culture and economies. We were and always have been market innovators. We achieved success because we created a balance between our individual creativity and our collective responsibility. We created systems that supported and encouraged individual innovation while ensuring we generated public resources to sustain our communities and cultures. Our communities specialized and innovated to support trade with other communities. Our governments exercised our inherent jurisdiction and built innovation, infrastructure, and institutions. Our people created and understood the importance of laws, standards, property rights, and financial and fiscal systems. We survived for millennia because we were innovative. We used our inherent jurisdiction to advance our innovations before contact. We will use them again to innovate our way out of colonialism.